the next question would be now, how important is it then to step outside of those two realms and be involved in organizations outside of work and home?
Right. Yes. In a given day, there has to be a little bit of time that you need to carve out for things that you would like to do. And there are two components. One is where you grow as a person, and second is where you relax as a person, because you need some time for the brain to recharge and be able to do the things that you do on a regular basis. So getting involved in organizations outside of your home and family, that may involve pursuing hobbies. So maybe you're interested in photography, and so you join a photography club, or interested in playing Frisbee, and so you join a Frisbee club. So things that you would like to do for yourself, you must be able to do that. At the same time, there are also other opportunities like being part of a church group and doing social service someplace. Those are again things, if they give you happiness, that is what you should really pursue at the time. And it's very important to do that because that's the third component of your life. But if you take away the sleep part of it, and it'll help you do the first two very well. Have to be able to pursue some things that are not rewarded from outside, but the reward actually comes from inside. You are the one feeling better about that, and therefore you want to do that. So yes, it's very, very important to be part of something like what you are doing right now. You do everything else that you do, but you are part of Metro Edge and you're leading the organization and you're trying to make a lot of things happen. Actually. And that recharges you to do the things you need to do at other times. So yes, it's very important for every one of us to have that particular bit of time. And it may not have to be this. For you, it may be Metro Edge. For somebody else, it may be maybe spiritual work. For somebody, it could be meditation. Whatever it is that they do, it's important to have the time for themselves.
Now, I know earlier that you said that you were in Ohio for a little bit and you've been in different places in the United States. What is it that you love most about Sacramento, given that vast perspective?
It's actually starts with the people. It's very interesting because these are some of the nicest people that I have seen. They are very friendly, they're happy, and they are very kind. So every time I interact with people, it's been a very positive experience. And they make you feel at home. That's one of the really nice parts of Sacramento. The second is, of course, the diversity that you see in Sacramento. And so many countries and cultures are represented. There's something to do every day if you really want to get engaged, because Sacramento provides those opportunities for you. And with it comes, of course, the food that goes with it. And Sacramento is, of course, well known as a farm-to-fork capital. And so there's just quite a bit of activity around that. And it's also an interesting geography because you're about an hour or two away from some of the best things that you want to enjoy in life. You can go east for about an hour and a half and you have the beach. You can go an hour and a half southwest and then you have San Francisco and all the fun stuff you do there. Within the city, there's a lot of activity. You go a little bit northeast, then you have Tahoe. Go a little bit south, you have Yosemite. So there's just so much of stuff around you within about an hour or two of where you are. And these are places that people come from all over the world because these are some of the most attractive things in the world. And they're all within about an hour or hour and a half. And there is no other town that can say this many things are available that close. And so that's another part that I really like about Sacramento. And now, of course, we are excited. I must be a little bit biased here when I say this, but I love the fact that we have UC Davis represented in Sacramento, a fantastic hospital system and a medical school. And now we are doing our Aggie Square project that's bringing Davis and Sacramento together like nothing ever has done before. So we're all very excited about it. We, as the Graduate School of Management, will be part of what's going on at Aggie Square. Our MBA program that we are offering and many other future programs will be offered from there. so we're very excited to be moving ourselves, at least a part of ourselves, into Sacramento.
I mean, yeah, definitely excited to see Aggie Square come to fruition, and been keeping track of that project for quite some time. So super excited to see all the progress that's been happening with that.
Right.
So in your career, what has been one of the most challenging things that you've had to deal with, and how did you overcome it?
So challenges can be in terms of what you do normally. Like COVID, for example, throws a challenge at you. That is, students may lose their jobs, or students may not even apply to study because they feel that they don't have the financial strength right now to do it. So those are challenges that can be thrown at you, and then you work on them. But I think the biggest challenges normally happen to be those where your principles are being challenged, your values are being challenged, and there are ethical dilemmas that you face, and you have to weigh in on one side or the other. So those are probably what I would say are the biggest challenges that I faced many times. And they all go back to that one common thing, which is ethically, is this the right thing to do? And if I don't do this, there is going to be an effect on my career. And you have to make sure that you don't give up on your principles, your values. If it means that they would say, well, if you don't do this, then you might want to step down as an associate. You should be ready for that, because that's not what's going to define you. What will define you is the action that you take. So those are the typical challenges you face, mostly ethical, and it is extremely important to not sacrifice your principles, because while it may give you a short-term gain, when you go back 20 years into your career at a senior level, that guilt never goes away. And you don't want to carry that with you. And the satisfaction you get of being consistent and staying true to your principles is a great reward in itself.
And so at the Graduate School of Management, what's going on new over there? And what are you doing to pivot during this time as well? Obviously, we brought up COVID. How is the GSM pivoting during this time?
So when the COVID virus situation happened and the lockdown, shelter in place, all that stuff started happening, the most important thing was our students. That's all we all cared about. What should we do for our students in order for them to not be affected negatively by this? There are some things which we cannot control, meaning we cannot bring them to the classroom because there's a lockdown. But we should be doing things for them in order to make their education experience better, because they're losing out on some things. So we quickly came together as a group, and it was not one person. The faculty were thinking only about students, the staff were thinking only about students, and we were just all working together to see what is it that we can do. It's amazing to imagine what kind of attention the students would get. The staff actually ended up making personal calls to every student to check on them to see if they were doing okay. It was important to have that conversation, and some people actually responded and told us some things they were going through, and they connected them with the campus resources and whatnot. So that was one thing. We also realized that many of the students may be in a position where we didn't know anything at the time. This is still unfolding. What if they lose their job? And so we realized that they may pay maybe $10,000 in tuition in a quarter. And if they lose their job and if they cannot drop the course, because the rules say that after the first week, if you drop, you lose money. Well, this is not the time for them to lose money. So we told them that they can actually go until the end of 7th week. And if they want to drop at the time, we'll give them a full refund, because there must be a reason why you're dropping, and we don't want you to financially suffer for dropping. So we took care of that. We also realized that the economy was going to be different in the future. And therefore, they need to actually start thinking about training themselves for that future rather than just do the same stuff that we've been doing. So the curriculum will always be the same because we designed it with long term in mind, but some tactical things that they have to pick up on are important. But how do you know what those things are? So we brought our senior alumni or CEOs, CFOs, and senior vice presidents, and we did 7 different panel discussions. 1 in business development, 1 in finance, 1 in leadership, 1 in technology and what's going on, that kind of stuff. For every one of those panel discussions, we had students come over, ask questions, and the executives were actually telling us what kinds of things a student should start learning now to be ready for an economy a year down the road, because it's going to be different from what we are seeing today. Mm-hmm. So then we actually took some of the advice that was given by the executives and offered students opportunities for them to get training in those areas free of charge. So that's what we are putting stuff together. And we also are, of course, working very closely with the faculty and staff to provide them with as best of an experience we can provide in the online mode. But we are experimenting with several things to make it better and better as we go along. But we are also coming together to have as many classes as possible on premise. And of course, we are working with our alumni. As soon as we heard about this problem, we started talking to alumni. And some of them were still looking for looking for people. And so we were starting to place our students who have finished their MBA in jobs. And then ultimately, there were still some students who were having difficulty in this economy. And the faculty came together saying, we'll appoint them as our research assistants and pay them so that they will have an internship experience where they're looking at some things from a business perspective. So it's all student-centered and trying to figure out how we can make the pain on the student the least that it can be.
And that's a challenge for all of us right now, figuring out how can we give our customers, our members more, even more during this time. So it sounds like you guys are coming up with some great ideas and have been continuing with that student-centric mentality, which is awesome. When it comes to, say, some members that are looking now at maybe career changes, going back to school, what words of encouragement would you give YPs to bet on themselves right now?
And again, don't lose hope, because all of these things in the grand scheme of things, when you look at it, are blips. And there is research to show that people who have graduated, let's say, or are young professionals, when these crises unfold, they may see a rough time for a few years because the economy is what it is. But about 5 to 7 years into their careers, everything gets forgotten and they keep rising just exactly the way they would have otherwise. So there is documented evidence that the crises that we are talking about normally tend to be of shorter duration than we think they are. As we are going through it, it hurts, but we have data to show crisis after crisis, things actually have become fine for many people. So don't lose hope is one thing. And the second thing is, when you're at work today, you have to make sure that the value that you're providing to your company is known. So if your job is X, always do X plus delta X. Don't try to just do what you're supposed to, because the value that you provide to the company is what keeps you in preference over somebody else who's not doing it. And there will be some people who would not do it for whatever reasons. And so your job is to make sure that you are the one that is seen as one of the highest values for the company. And then from a young professional perspective, one of the most important things I tell all my MBA students also is, remember, you're starting out at some place in the organization. And very normally, you're at one of the lower positions in the organization as a young professional. And it's very important for you to understand that while you do a very good job, Your real progress comes when you make your boss look good. So don't forget that. Don't think you're trying to go around your boss and get something done. No, that doesn't work that way. Always understand that the person who is your supervisor is relying on you to grow in their profession. And when they grow, you grow with them. So they are the people that you have to really think about and make sure they look good. And that's when you grow as well. But it also develops a good work ethic in you. Because ultimately, it's, like I said, not about just you. It's about the people that are in the organization. And then I think one of the other things that most people forget, which I think is very important for the young professionals to understand, is in any organization, whatever it is that you do is very likely to become raw material for somebody else to do something on it. Always. Until it reaches the position where a decision is being made, and then it comes back for implementation. But everything that you do is a raw material for somebody else. Even when you produce something, you're producing it not for yourself, you're producing it for somebody to consume. And how easy you make it for them to consume the product determines the success of the product. So that's normally what I would tell people. These are crisis times. There is always this hand-wringing going on about how many people can I have, how many people may have to go. And you want to be the person whom they want to keep. And they want to keep you if you exhibit these things, that you actually add value. You just don't do what I'm asking you to do, but you make my job easier. And so I can't find another person like you. Mm-hmm. And so put that time into that. It's very, very important for them.
Always be adding value. That is definitely a number one tip. I don't know if you're aware, but EDGE definitely this year has a long-term initiative of looking at inclusion and belonging. So DIB is what we call it, so diversity, inclusion, and belonging work. So my question to you is how are you cultivating diversity or diversity of thought and collaboration at the GSM?
And there is actually a very nice effort that's been going on for a few years now. We have a committee that has faculty members and staff members, and they have prepared what they have called as the diversity strategy for us. They identified the weaknesses that we have currently in terms of diversity, and they put 5 pillars, saying here are the 5 pillars that we have to act on, and here are the goals that we have for each of these pillars. And we will figure out what activities that you will be doing in order for us to achieve those goals. So they nicely laid out a good strategy, an implementation plan, and a prioritization plan as well. And we are executing on that. So it ranges from bringing in students who are more diverse than what we have, to having more diversity in the staff, to actually having more activities that reflect diversity. And so take something very simple. Because we do business education, there are case studies that we use. Well, if you look at the case studies that are published by Harvard Business School, a majority of them happen to have a white male decision maker. And so the faculty actually are now skimming through all those things and picking out cases that are more diverse in terms of who the decision makers are. So there could be a Hispanic decision maker, there could be an African-American decision maker, there could be a female decision maker, whatever those diverse things are, we will actually have different diverse decision makers incorporated into the cases, and that's what we will use. So what does it do? It makes it easy for people to imagine a decision maker who is not the traditional white male. And so it becomes easy for them to work in that environment when they go out. So there are things along those lines. But there are those activities going on. And those are all things that you can do very easily. And these are things we should have been doing, so to speak. And then there is the culture. So how should we make it a culture where everybody feels equally welcome and valued? And that's not as easy because people mistake being nice with being respectful. They're not the same. You can be nice to people without respecting them, but you cannot be not nice if you respect them. So it is very important for us to train ourselves to respect the other individual for who they are. And automatically everything else takes care of itself. So right now, most of the problems that we face as a country, and as a world actually, are where we are unable to show the respect that the other human being deserves, which results in all these issues that we are talking about today. So how to create that environment? So we have something called a collaborative leadership program that we're bringing. The faculty and staff and students have come together to design it. But one of the first things we talk about there is to be able to respect the other individual for the expertise they bring to whatever it is that they're doing. Once you do that, that person feels valued. And therefore, they don't feel like they're being discriminated against or they are not welcome in an environment and so on. So that is where we are spending some time now. And there's a huge group of people who came together at GSM to advance these initiatives. There is a book club that has been formed by a faculty member where a bunch of faculty members are reading a book and they will come together to discuss some of the implications of what's being talked about in the book. So we become more sensitive to things that we see. People don't realize, I mean, most of the things that we talk about, which are hurtful to a group of minorities, are subconscious things. People just assume something and say it, and then that's all. So, and of course, there is a difference. We have to be very careful because, you know, if you're the type of person who is offended by everything, it's very hard for me to interact with you. But there are genuine things we say which are wrong, and we should be careful about that. And things which are otherwise fine, you don't realize the impact it has on the diversity. So take a simple case of, let's say we need somebody to do some work for us. And I say, you know what? I know this guy who's great. He has done similar work before, and he'll be able to come and do it for us because I know he's available. And then you work on a process, and let's say you bring him in on a contract basis to do the work. And he does a great job. Everything is fine. And so everything looks fine. But just take a step back. What did I do? Number one, whom am I more likely to be friends with? People like me. So the person that I'm bringing in already is someone who is like me. There's no diversity there. Number two, by only looking at that one person and not really looking outside, I have taken out that opportunity for somebody else. And so there again, diversity has gone. So these activities which look fine on the surface sometimes actually have implications for diversity. In fact, we have a whole diversity training program at the University of California system that points out these kinds of errors we'll be making. And we are very careful in trying to figure out how to not make those errors. And then the third dimension of all these things is, it's not enough to be sensitive to these things, but can we become a little bit more aggressive in the activities rather than wait for things to happen? So if I want to bring in a few more African Americans into my MBA class, do I just participate in an MBA fair for African Americans and then tell them, oh, you know, you should come to UC Davis and come back and nobody applies and then I did everything I could? No, no, no. You got to go beyond that. And you have to really make an effort. You have to go talk to them. You have to call them. You have to email them. You have to do whatever it takes to work with these people, to bring them to this place, if you really care about it. So how to incentivize yourself through your belief system that this is so important that I should not just let it go. So we are putting all these things together. And then we have a 5-year plan that says at the end of 5 years, this is what our school would look like. And we are pursuing that.
And so I would say that you're always learning, probably, I would assume.
Really, yes.
Always learning. So how do you continue to grow as a leader?
It's a complex thing because the thing that comes in the way is ego. It's easy to think that you know everything, and all of us go through that. I think when you just try to open yourself up a little bit to what you're hearing around you, there is a lot that you pick up and you learn, and that will help you. So first thing to do is to learn how to observe what's going on around you, and to be able to recognize the things that, wow, I didn't realize we could do it that way. So that openness has to be there for you to process information that's coming to you from around you, or people telling you things that they're doing. Listen. That's one thing. Second, there will be times when you will need somebody to talk to you and tell you that this is probably the right thing to do. Even though you have been doing the same thing for other people, there will come a time when you yourself have to go and ask somebody else because you're not able to figure things out. So be willing and open to listen to these people. And the third thing is practice. Leadership is a concept. We can talk for 24 hours today just talking about how great it is to be this kind of a leader, a servant leader, or a situational leader. We can give all terminology and whatnot. But the only thing that really matters in the end is, are you practicing what you're talking about? And the more you practice, the more it becomes you. And therefore, you actually become a good leader that way. So focusing on internally on practicing what you're talking about and learning from those mistakes, because it's amazing when you just sit back and self-criticize at the end of the day. You go, man, I didn't realize I said that. I can't believe I said that, or I did that, and so on. So on a given day, everything seems to be going on that is contrary to some of the things that you believe in. And therefore, you really have to pay attention to your own self and see if you're living up to the values that you are proselytizing out there for leadership. But it is just observing and listening. That becomes a very important thing and very difficult to do. Human beings like to talk. And you've seen me do that for an hour now. So I think it's very important for us sometimes just to be the observer. And when you become the observer, it's an interesting mental stance you take. An observer also becomes detached. And when you are detached, you learn a lot, because there is no more emotional baggage you're carrying with you. You're clinically examining something and you're making a decision based on that. So as a leader, just be open, let your ego go down, and observe and learn all the time, because there's quite a bit of stuff out there that's happening every day. And it's amazing if you just open yourself up how much you pick up and learn. So that humility ultimately serves you. And it's important to keep that. There's no reason for any of us to think we are great. Because most of the stuff that happens, we don't control. You work for it, but it could have gone the other way. I cannot guarantee you today that I can safely go back home. Because who knows if there's a drunk driver on the road. I can't guarantee you that. So I can't tell you I'm such a good driver, I'll guarantee you that I can go home safely today, because it's not in my hands. It's a lot of other things as well. So given that our control on what's going on is minimal, but our effort has to be the best that we can put out there, because you maximize at least on that. There's no reason for us to become puff our chests up and say, I did it. Not really. You did something, but there's a bunch of other people who came together to make it happen. Right? I always remember that the quotation from the book, The Alchemist. There he says, when something good has to happen, the entire universe conspires to make it happen. So it's not you, it's the universe coming together to make it happen. And that's an important thing to keep at the back of the mind. And be thankful. Be thankful, because if good things happen, wow, you just were, you're part of that. It just so happened that it happened when you were there. A lot of good things happen. Of course, doesn't mean that you don't put in any effort. That's just completely wrong. What you're saying is you put in everything you can, but understand that there is quite a bit of other stuff that has to happen to realize your own goals. It's not just you. It's a lot of people around you coming together to make it happen. And when that humility comes in you, you start learning, because the ego has been suppressed.
Well, I want to thank you for the time you've taken today to talk to us. If anyone watching this wanted to reach out, learn more about the Graduate School of Management, or maybe have a follow-up question for you, was there a contact email that you'd be happy to share with us for that?
Oh, sure. It's actually on the website as well, the Grad School of Management website, but I will give it to you. It's RUNNAVA, Unnava, at ucdavis.edu.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Dean Unnava, for spending this time with us. And thank you at the GSM for supporting and being a partner of Metro Edge. You guys have been a strong partner of ours for multiple years now, and we appreciate that so much. We wouldn't be able to do a lot of stuff that we have done and will continue to do without your support. So I really appreciate you, and I want to thank you personally for your support as well.
Thank you very much. And I will tell you that it is a favorite organization of ours. You represent the leadership of the next several years for us. This is the group that's going to lead the country in the future. So we are very, very happy to be part of this effort that you guys are making. It's heartening to see the good things that happen all the time through Metro Edge. So good luck with everything that you folks are doing, and always happy to support you.
Thank you. I appreciate those kind words. And for our watchers out there, thank you for tuning in again. And this is us signing off. All right. Bye-bye.